There are mornings that look no different from the day before. Sunlight still spills through the window. The sound of traffic hums outside, yet inside him, something has shifted. Not a shock, not a dramatic turning point, but a quiet realization. Like when the fog lifts and reveals the landscape that had always been there. He looks around and sees the conversations he once joined now feel hollow. The polite questions, the polite compliments, the small stories that lead nowhere. All of it sounds like an echo. In an empty room, he notices he no longer hungers for a place in those circles. Not out of hatred, nor out of pride, but because he has seen the price of always fitting into someone else's frame. For years, he walked into rooms carrying a silent question. Will they like me? Today, that question is gone, replaced by another. Will I respect myself when I walk out? And when the question changes, everything changes. He no longer rushes to keep the conversation alive, no longer laughs at the right time, nods at the right cue. He sits still and realizes silence is not as frightening as it once was. In that silence, there is a new strength, a strength that doesn't come from being known by many, but from knowing himself deeply. The first step of awakening is not walking away from the crowd, but no longer trying to dissolve into it. And from that moment on, his path begins to fall out of step with theirs. There's a difference, a deep, unmistakable difference, between retreating out of fear and stepping back because you've finally seen the truth. Fear makes a man shrink, hide, and hope no one notices. Clarity, on the other hand, makes him stand still, not to disappear, but to stop wasting his steps on roads that no longer lead anywhere. He begins to sense it in the way. Old conversations now feel heavier than they should. They orbit the same tired planets. Status, complaints, subtle boasting, like a carousel that never changes its music. Once, he would have jumped on that ride without a second thought, laughing and nodding along, eager to be part of the movement. Now he stands at the edge, watching the repetition, and wonders how he ever mistook it for something alive. In those moments, he realizes the most dangerous role he ever played was the role of the agreeable man. The man who smiles even when he disagrees. The man who softens his words so no one feels the edge of truth. The man who offers laughter on cue and approval on demand, all to keep the peace, all to belong, but belonging that requires you to betray yourself is not belonging. It's slow erasure. And so he lets the mask slip. He stops filling the silence just to make others comfortable. He allows moments of awkwardness to stand, because awkwardness is often the first crack in a false wall. From the outside, it might look like withdrawal, but inside, it feels like air filling his lungs for the first time in years. He is not retreating from life. He's retreating from the performance of life. And if you've ever felt that moment, the quiet pull away from the noise, the decision to stop playing along, you already know its power. You already know the peace that follows. If you've lived through that silence yourself, leave a single dot in the comments, so others who are waking up will know they're not alone. At first, the changes are subtle. A missed call here, a message left unanswered there. No arguments, no dramatic endings, just a slow, steady fading. And it's in that fading that he begins to see the truth. Most connections were never built on truth at all. They were built on habit, on comfort, on the mutual illusion that we truly knew each other. Habit is a powerful glue. People meet in the same places, speak the same lines, share the same complaints, and call it closeness. Comfort reinforces it. As long as no one asks the hard questions, the warmth feels real. And illusion seals the deal, the unspoken agreement. To keep the story going, even when it no longer feels alive. But when he stops participating in that quiet contract, when he no longer feeds, the cycle of mutual validation, the structure begins to shake. It's not that he's burned bridges. It's that the bridges collapse under their own weight once the foundation is gone. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Many of those bridges were built only to exchange approval, not to carry the weight of honesty. One by one, they fall. The friends who needed his agreement to feel secure drift away. The companions who relied on shared grievances to bond find the air too thin without constant complaints. The relationships that demanded he play a role dissolve the moment he refuses. The script. From the outside, it looks like loss. From the inside, it feels like clearing space. For the first time, he can see the landscape without the fog of constant affirmation. And while that landscape may seem emptier, it is also wider, clearer, and infinitely more real. Some bridges are worth crossing. Some are worth rebuilding. But the ones that crumble when truth replaces pretense, let them fall. Because if a connection can't survive without constant feeding, it was never alive to begin with. To most people, being alone is a warning sign, proof that something is missing. They see the empty chair beside you, the quiet evenings, the absence of constant chatter, and they name it loneliness. But to a man who has awakened, solitude is something entirely different. It is not a void to be filled. It is a space to grow into. The Stoics understood this well. Solitude, in their eyes, was not exile. It was training ground. It was where the noise of the world finally quieted enough for a man to hear the truth within himself. It was not a punishment but a privilege, the freedom to shape his own mind without the constant pull of other people's fears, needs, and illusions. From the outside, absence feels like loss. From the inside, absence feels like clarity. A man still asleep will rush to fill the empty hours with distraction, calls, texts, meaningless errands, anything to avoid hearing the echo of his own thoughts. A man awake will let the hours stand bare, knowing that stillness is not the enemy. He remembers one day in particular. The clock ticked. The sunlight moved slowly across the wall. He sat there for hours, without music, without conversation, without reaching for his phone. And as the minutes passed, something shifted. Time kept moving, but his mind stopped hurrying to keep up. The anxiety that once chased him through every moment was gone, replaced by a steady calm that felt both unfamiliar and deeply natural. That's the truth outsiders don't see. Solitude is not the absence of connection, but the presence of self. Loneliness demands to be cured. Solitude asks to be embraced. And once a man learns the difference, he will never confuse them again. People rarely realize how much they rely on others to confirm who they are. Every smile returned, every nod of agreement, every shared laugh, it's all part of a subtle, unspoken exchange. You reflect me, and I'll reflect you. So when he stops playing that role, when he no longer mirrors their emotions or feeds their need for constant affirmation, something unsettling happens. The air changes. The easy rhythm breaks. They can't quite name it, but they feel it. And because people are quick to label what they don't understand, they give him names that fit their discomfort. Arrogant, cold, distant. But the truth is far simpler and far less dramatic. He's not angry. He's not rejecting anyone. He has simply stopped participating in the game of trading approval for belonging. He no longer bends his words to keep others comfortable. He no longer nods just to avoid friction. He no longer offers compliments he doesn't mean or reassurance that denies what he actually sees. This shift doesn't make him hostile, it makes him honest. Yet honesty, when it refuses to flatter, is often mistaken for hostility. His silence is not judgment, it's just silence. But in a world where most people speak to manage perceptions, withholding that performance feels like a threat. The irony is, he once played that game flawlessly. He knew how to please, how to charm, how to be the version of himself that others found easy to accept. Now he has no interest in wearing that mask. And those who depended on it are left unsettled, not because he has changed into someone worse, but because he has stopped being the version of himself they could control. In the end, their discomfort is not about who he is now. It's about the mirror he has quietly set down. When he strips away the roles, the performances, and the constant negotiation for approval, something becomes clear. Most relationships were built on need, not choice. And so, when he thinks about true connection, the definition changes completely. True connection does not demand dependency. It does not hinge on expectation. It does not require either person to shrink or stretch themselves just to fit. It is a meeting of two whole individuals who can stand alone, yet choose freely, without pressure, to walk side by side. He imagines it like two flames in the dark. Each burns fully on its own, bright and steady, not leaning toward the other for fuel. They don't merge into one flame to survive. They burn separately, yet their light overlaps, creating something richer without either losing its shape. Is why he no longer searches for this kind of bond. It cannot be hunted down or forced into existence. Chasing it would only turn it into another performance, another transaction disguised as intimacy. When it appears naturally, in the quiet recognition between two people who see each other as they are, without the need to complete or fix one another. Until then, he would rather stand in solitude than pretend in company. Because in a world where most connections demand you trade a piece of yourself to keep them alive, the rare bond that asks for nothing and yet offers everything is worth waiting for. And it is worth protecting from the moment it's found. There comes a point when the hunger for recognition simply dissolves. It doesn't happen overnight, and it's not the result of bitterness. It's the quiet outcome of seeing how hollow that hunger really was. Once, he needed to be understood. He needed to be praised, validated, reassured that his path made sense to others. Now he understands that seeking those things was like chasing shadows. The closer he got, the less they mattered. When that need falls away, something else happens. Almost instantly, his social circle reshapes itself. The people who valued him for his applause drift off when it's no longer given. The ones who only stayed because of constant agreement lose interest when he stops nodding along. And the few who remain, they are the ones who never needed him to be anything other than himself. This is not isolation, it's refinement. What's left is smaller, but stronger. What's left is real. Inside, the freedom is unmistakable. He no longer measures his worth by the reactions of others. He doesn't need them to approve, to applaud, or even to understand. His truth doesn't require a witness to be valid. And so he can say, without hesitation, I don't need them to wake up for me to feel whole. That statement isn't defiance, it's peace. A peace born from knowing that the deepest recognition a man can receive is the one he gives himself. The more he observes, the clearer it becomes. Most people are not living, they are performing. They move through their days reciting lines they never wrote, defending beliefs they never examined, and keeping busy with tasks that exist only to fill the silence. He sees the masks, the polite smiles hiding exhaustion, the confident tones masking uncertainty, the constant motion designed to convince themselves they're progressing. It's a play so seamless that even the actors believe it's real. Once, he played those roles too. He knew his cues, his costume, his lines. But now, standing outside the script, the performance feels transparent. He watches, not with judgment, but with the quiet certainty that he will never step back into that role again. And so he asks you, not as a challenge, but as an invitation, will you keep playing the part, or will you dare to drop the script? Because the truth is, dropping it comes with a cost. You may lose your place in the cast. You may lose the applause. You may even lose the comfort of being told you're doing well. But what you gain, clarity, authenticity, and the ability to live without disguise, is worth infinitely more. If you choose truth over approval, you'll walk a lonelier road, yes, but it will be your road. And on that road, every step belongs to you. If you choose the truth over the comfort of fitting in, hit subscribe, and let's walk this path together. At first, the quiet felt unusual, like stepping into a room where the music had suddenly stopped. He noticed the absence of noise, the lack of constant messages, the space that used to be filled with small talk and social obligations. But over time, that silence stopped feeling empty. It began to feel like home. It became the ground he stood on, steady and unshakable. No longer a gap to be filled, but a foundation to live from. He no longer explains himself to be understood. He no longer bends his choices to win agreement. The urge to justify, to persuade, to prove, it's gone. And with its absence comes a freedom that is hard to describe to those still tangled in the need for approval. Now, his connections are fewer, but they are rooted in truth. There is no performance, no bargaining of self-worth for acceptance. He has learned to live in the space truth creates, even when that space feels wide and bare, rather than in the closeness that illusion demands. What once felt like loss now feels like alignment, a life arranged around what is real, not around keeping up appearances. And in that alignment, the silence that once unsettled him has become the most natural sound in the world. He does not walk alone as an outcast, but as a man who knows the value of truth. The road beneath his feet is not crowded, but it is solid, built on choices that are his alone. Every step is deliberate, free from the pull of roles he no longer wishes to play, free from the weight of masks he no longer wears. In the distance, the sun leans toward the horizon, casting a warm gold across the path. His figure moves steadily through that light, not rushing, not seeking to be seen, yet carrying a presence impossible to ignore. It's not in the way he looks, but in the way he moves, with the calm certainty of someone who no longer trades authenticity for acceptance. Those who pass him may not understand why his pace is so unhurried, why his eyes seem to look beyond the immediate, why his silence feels heavier than words. But they will feel it, the quiet strength of a man who belongs entirely to himself. And if you are on this road, you are not alone. This path is walked by few, but each step echoes in the lives of those ready to hear it. If you are walking this path, know this: you are not walking it alone. True Stoic way walks with you.